Okay, so today's sponsor is Jeff and Shira Muller. Bizchus Refuah Shlema for Ephraim ben Shifra. Should have a Refuah Shlema soon. Okay, we are going to start Tes Amud Beis. Amen. And we are going to start, as we usually review, just a little bit of what we had ended with last time. V'amar Rav Yosef, 5 lines up from the bottom. Rav Yosef had made the comment that Ploni Rav Ola Onso. Hu v'acher mitzarfim lahargo. So we were talking about who can become. We were talking about statements of Rav Yosef, particularly statements of Rav Yosef, which with regard to witnesses. If somebody is testifying about a person that he was sexually assaulted by this other man, and now he wants to combine to be a he wants to combine to be a witness with another person in order to be able to prosecute that fellow. So he and another person can combine together to be witnesses in order to have him killed. Lirtzono, but if he testifies that he himself was a willing participant in the Avera, so then Rasha, then that makes him a wicked person as being part of the Avera. And therefore, V'hatorah Amra al Tashes Rasha, aid, that the Torah says that you can't be both a wicked person and a witness in the case. So if you committed the crime, you cannot be the witness. So therefore, as a result, he's not eligible to be the witness. Rava says, Adam Karov Eitzel Atzmo, that we can split this testimony in two, and the reason why is because a person is considered to be his own relative, Vein Adam Mesim Atzmo Rasha, and as a result, a person cannot testify about himself to be a wicked person. Therefore, he has 2 parts to his testimony. Part number 1 is that I was a willing participant. Part number 2, that this other person is the one who did it to me. So therefore, the part where he says, I was a willing participant is stricken from the record because he's not allowed to testify about himself being a Rasha, but the other part where he testifies about the other person can be admissible, and therefore he and the other person can be witnesses. And Amar Rava says in a similar vein, Ploni Ba'al Ishti. So let's say he says the testimony is so-and-so had an affair with my wife. Hu ve'acher mitzarfim lahorgo. He can be a witness with another person in order to have him killed. Aval lo lahorgo, but not about her, not about the wife. Why? Kamash will say this because why? Because he is testifying about his wife, who is his relative, and he's not allowed to testify about her. So he cannot testify that she has done the Avera, because she is his relative. However, as far as testifying about the other person, he can be believed. So he can be testifying about the adulterer, but not about his wife. So now the question is, my kamash malon, what is this coming to teach us? Dimepalkinon bedibura. This is coming to teach us again the law that we can split this testimony in half. The part about his wife is inadmissible, but the part about the other fellow is effective testimony. So hainu hach. Then the reason why we started a little bit early is in order to be able to get this question, hainu hach is the same case, right? So what difference does it make if he's the person he's not allowed to testify about or his wife that he's not allowed to testify about? We already got this halacha that your part of your testimony that you can't testify can get stricken from the record, and we can have the other half of the testimony be admissible. No, mahu detema, what would you have thought? Adam karov etzel atzmo amrinon etzel ishto lo amrinon. We might have thought to presume that it's different when you're talking about yourself. Maybe when it comes to yourself, that is a closer relationship, and therefore a person cannot testify negatively about himself. But as far as his wife is concerned, even though we're going to learn in the Gemara upcoming that he is considered related to his wife, we might have thought that that testimony could be admissible, kamash malon. So therefore we come to say that no, he is still considered a relative of his wife. That testimony is inadmissible. We're going to strike that testimony, and he can still have valid testimony on the other part. Now, the Gemara, many Mefarshim are struggling with this. I mean, we know that his wife is a relative, so why is it that we would presume that his wife would not be considered that much a relative? One good explanation that I saw was potentially the idea that once he's testifying about his wife committing adultery, maybe he's not so close with her anymore. Maybe at that point the relationship is over, right? They're not going to stay married at this point, so the relationship might be over, and because of that, despite the fact that they were related up until this point, and therefore the testimony should be invalid. Maybe the fact that the testimony that he's testifying about is a testimony that separates the two of them, maybe he would be able to be believed. So therefore the answer is no. He's related to his wife. That part of the testimony is admissible. V'amar Rava. Rava says, Ploni ba'al nara ha'ma'orasa. Let's say there's testimony that somebody had relations with a girl who was engaged. Okay, so she's engaged, and so therefore it's an adulterous relationship. Vehuzmu. Then the witnesses are then found to have been lying, not just lying, but that they were found to be zomim. But we said that other witnesses come along and say, you couldn't have testified about this girl that she was an adulteress because you were with us at the time that you claimed that the avera took place. So neheragin vein mishamin mamon. So then we are going to kill these witnesses, but they do not have to make a payment. They don't have to pay they don't have to make a payment. Now, where would the payment be? Because when it comes to nara ha'ma'orasa, there would be a payment from the adulterer to the father of the girl, right? So if she was assaulted, sorry, not she was engaged, she was assaulted. If she was assaulted, so then he has the person who's doing the assaulting would have a payment, right? So. Right, so therefore they're going to get misa because they tried to kill the person who was committing the rape, and they are not going to have to pay because they're going to have to, because of the payment that they were going to make the person who has committed the assault have to pay for the father because of the kamle b'derabba mine, right? That you can't get two punishments.
Even if it's attempted murder, they'll still be put to death?
Not that. Right, now the witnesses will be put to death, correct. But they don't have to pay because, as we talked about this rule of kamle b'derabba mine, right? That you can't get, that you only get the more, you can't get, one. That's correct, you always get the greater one.
Can I ask a question? I'm so sorry.
Yes.
I hope, I bet you this question was answered, and
probably. I always answer all the questions.
How could it be, if you can't testify yourself, that ever applies? How does that ever apply? The first testimony is always going to be something related to me, and therefore it cannot be believed.
Pesha aser, pesha hitir doesn't necessarily have to do with you committing a crime. Right? Pesha aser, pesha hitir.
We don't believe my testimony, or is it only strictly when it's about me making a crime?
That's the only time we don't believe the testimony, right?
Okay,
right?
So
it's only if I am admitting to committing a crime, that's where I don't believe the testimony.
Okay, that's the special. Okay,
yes.
That was the specific.
Now, let's say he says, "Bito shel ploni." Let's say now in this second circumstance, they specify, right? So now they're going to specify Bito shel ploni. She was the one that was assaulted. Okay, so now he makes it very clear who was the victim, vehuzmu. So then they became Edom Zomamin, Neheragin. Then they're going to be killed, Umishaman, and the witnesses are going to have to pay as well. Why? Because Mamon Lezeh, and Mamon, it is Nefashos, Mamon Lezeh, Nefashos Lezeh. Change the gears there, right? It is because we are in a circumstance where they were trying to cause a death sentence to the one who was committing the assault, and they were trying to cause a loss of money to the father of the Nara, right? Because she was going to lose her ksuba if they testified about this girl that she committed this adultery, that she committed this religion, that she's
a victim, or what does it mean?
Nara is the girl, right? She happens to be a victim, right? So if she's the victim, but she would lose her ksuba because she participated, and so there would be a loss to the father because of the ksuba that was lost. Since there is a loss to this person and a death sentence because of the testimony of the other person, that we said that you could obligate the witnesses to get two penalties for Edom Zomim, right? So he said we cannot give the Edom Zomim two punishments if the two punishments are a result of testimony against one individual. But if their testimony created two separate harms to two separate individuals, then we could still hold them responsible for two crimes, and they could have to get the death sentence and have to pay. V'amar Rava. Rava says, Ploni Rava Hashur. Now they testify that so-and-so had relations with an ox. Okay, so that's usher from the Torah, death sentence. Vehuzmu, and now the witnesses are zomamim. The witnesses are found to be zomamim. I don't know, it's a scheming. That's the good translation, right? They found that they lied. They were not where they were. They have new witnesses come and say, you were with us at the time that you're testifying. Neheragin. So now the witnesses are going to get killed because they tried to be able to testify about a murder case, a capital case against the individual. Vein mishalman mamon, they don't have to pay for the ox that is going to be destroyed. An ox, somebody has a relation with the ox, the people die, and also the ox does as well, right? The ox has to be destroyed. Now, you don't pay for the ox. Why? Because their testimony, they never said which ox. They just said, all we know is this guy had relations with an ox. That's all they do. So therefore, there's no ox that they're testifying about. So therefore, they're not obligated to pay for any ox because they weren't trying to get any ox killed.
Maybe this is obvious. So witnesses have to be men, right? Can't be minors and can't be women.
Correct. Oh. Not so obvious, but yes. Right? That comes up later. Right? But yes.
Okay. Even if they're the victim.
Yeah. So even if the victim, as we said, even if they're the victim, they can also be.
Can't be a woman who's a victim cannot be
giving testimony.
A witness.
Correct.
A man who's a victim can't even give testimony either about.
We said that was our first case that we started off with. Yes, we could.
Oh, okay.
He could. Now, Shoro Shoploni, if he testifies and says, so-and-so's ox, it was this guy had relationship with so-and-so's ox, then vehuzmu, then they are zomamim, so neheragin umishalmin, then you can kill the Edom zomamim, and they have to pay. Why? Because again, mamon lezeh, unefashos lezeh. This mishalmin they're going to pay, because it's mamon lezeh, unefashos lezeh. It's a case of money that goes to one person, and the death sentence is because of another. Meaning, because you testified about this person that he committed the crime, so that's why you're getting killed. And because you testified about this ox, that was a loss to the other guy. Therefore, you have to pay for his ox. So therefore, since it's a death sentence because of your testimony about this guy, and a financial penalty because of your testimony about the ox, you're going to have to get the death sentence, and your heirs are going to pay the value of the ox that you caused to get destroyed.
That's kind of brutal, though.
Which does? Killing the people or the ox?
Both.
Both. Okay, there you go. We're going to learn that the definition of morality is going to be whatever's written in the Torah, right? We're going to understand that if it sounds brutal to us, it's because our minds are not our minds have to be aligned, right? Not the other way around. Right. So, hatulamali. So now, why do I need this additional case? Rava's giving us another case. Sounds very similar to the previous case where we had the girl, right? It was the exact same idea. If he didn't testify which girl it was, then we didn't know, so therefore we didn't pay. If we knew, then we did pay. Seems like the same thing. Hainu hach. So the answer is mishum de kaboi ilove. Because Rava, when he was introducing this teaching, he wanted to add on another teaching to it. De boy Rava asked the fine question. Ploni Rava shori mahu. What if a person says, so-and-so had relations with my ox. Now, what happens there? Do we say the part of the testimony where he testified about the ox is stricken from the record because he is related to his own money? Right? He's related to himself, and this is his ox, therefore he can't testify about his own ox, therefore the ox does not get killed. Or do we say, that's what we say about himself? He's related to himself. So he can't testify about himself being part of the Aveira, but he can testify about his money being used in an Aveira. Or maybe we do say that a person is considered to be closely related to his money, and therefore he can't testify about his own money being part of the crime, and therefore the fact that he did is stricken from the record, and the ox can stay alive. So Basa de Boy, after he asked that question, Hadar Pashta, he then answered the question. He said, Adam Karovetzel Atzmo. A person is considered to be related to himself, therefore he cannot make testimony about himself being a criminal. Ve'ein Adam Karovetzel Mamono, but a person is not considered to be a relative to his own money. Therefore, he can testify about his property being used in a crime. So therefore, if his property was used in a crime, the ox would be destroyed. Okay, next case in our Mishnah was Makos Bishlosha, that you need 3 judges in order to deliver lashes. Minani Mili, where do we know this from? Amar Rav Huna, Amar Kra. Rav Huna says, the pasuk says, Vishaftum, the pasuk that talks about, let's see where the pasuk is. We moved the Torah to the other side. Kiyya, this is in Dvarim Chaf Hey Aleph. It says Kiyya Riv Bein Anashim. If there's a fight between two individuals, V'nigshu El Hamishpat. They're going to bring it to the judges. V'shvatum, and then they will judge them. V'tzdiku es hatzadik v'rishiu es harasha. They will declare the righteous person to be righteous and the wicked person to be wicked. And then the next pasuk continues very next pasuk says V'haya im bin hakos es harasha. And when you're going to deliver lashes to the person. So now, whatever this dispute was between these two individuals, the dispute was over a crime that one of them committed that he was subject to lashes for. Otherwise, the next pasuk would not say, and when they're going to deliver him lashes. So therefore, this pasuk is talking about delivering lashes, and the pasuk says, ushvatum, two of them, the judges will judge them. Now, shvatum means, minimal plural is shnayim, there's two. Vein based in shakal, we know there's no such thing as an even court. Therefore, mosif and alei modechad, we're going to add one more judge to this court. Hare kan shosha, which makes three judges. Elameata. Okay, well, if that's the case, v'hitzdiku, let's go into the rest of this pasuk. The pasuk continued on. V'hitzdiku es hatzadik, v'hirshiu es harasha, and they will declare the righteous, the righteous one righteous, and they will declare the one who is wicked to be wicked. Well, that means hare kan shiva. That means you have shvatum, two judges to judge. Then you have two judges to declare righteous, two judges to declare wicked. That's six judges. Can't have even. We'd be up to seven. Why'd you say three? If you're just reading this pasuk, it should be seven. So the answer is no. Those extra words, v'tzdiku es hatzadik v'rishiu es harasha, are not related to the number of judges. When something is already used, there's a general principle that we should be aware of, that when we start to look at words that are being used for psukim, they are used once. Meaning, it is not common, would be very outrageous for a word to be used to teach two completely separate laws. So if the v'hitzdiku es hatzadik v'rishiu es harasha is being used to teach me something separate, it's not being used to teach me the number of judges. So therefore, if v'hirshiu is telling me about the number of, so therefore, ushvatum is telling me about the number of judges, and this part of the pasuk is talking about ahumi baileg kedeula. This part of the pasuk is telling me about what Ula says. Da'amar Ula says, remez le'edim zomim min haTorah minayin. Where is the hint in the Torah about scheming witnesses? This rule about scheming witnesses, it's not so logical. Right? If I have two witnesses that say one thing and I have two witnesses that say the opposite, they should cancel each other out. It shouldn't be that the second set of witnesses is believed over the first set of witnesses. Right. So where is the hint to this whole concept of Edom Zomimim in the Torah? But Gemara says, wait a second. Remez Edom Zomimim. What do you mean a hint? It's written right in the Torah. V'aksiv, the pasuk says, kasher zamam. You have to give them the punishment that they scheme to do. It's literally right in the Torah. It's not a hint at all. Ella, rather, what the question was being asked is, remez le'edim zomim shalokin minayin. What if there's a circumstance where whatever the witnesses attempted to scheme to do to the other person could not be done back to these witnesses? Right. The Gemara's example, which we're going to give later on, right, that's where Makos starts off, right? For example, they testify about this fellow that he is this fellow was a Kohen, that his father married a divorced woman, and therefore he's not a real Kohen. He's not one that can get Kohen Aliyah, and he can't duchen. Well, that's a very serious attack. But these witnesses, you can't give them the same thing because they might not be Kohanim. So how are you going to do the same thing back to them? What happens in that circumstance? He wants to know. So the answer is, Dichsiv, the pasuk says, V'tzdiku es hatzadik v'hirshiu es harasha. The judges will find the person who is righteous to be righteous and the wicked person to become wicked. So, one second. Mishum dehitzdiku es hatzadik v'hirshiu es harasha v'hayim bin hakos harasha. Every time you have in the Torah, somebody is found to be guilty and the other person is found to be innocent, so you're going to bring somebody to lashes? There are lots of different punishments in the Torah. They're not all come out in conclusion that you're going to get lashes. Ella, rather, here's the story. This is what the pasuk is really talking about. Eidim sher shius at tzaddik. So what happens is you had witnesses came, and first they testified and said about a completely righteous person that he was wicked. Ve'asu eidei achrini. Then two more witnesses came. Veitzdiku es hatzadik. And that's where the pasuk picks up. Two more witnesses came, and they reestablished this righteous person as being righteous. Demikara, just like they were at first. V'shavinhu lahanach rishayim. So, and then, by doing so, they have made these witnesses into wicked people. So this whole pasuk is talking about Edom Zomim. The witnesses come. It's not the judges that are making them righteous or wicked. It's these two new witnesses come. These two witnesses come and they make the righteous person back into righteous, and in doing so they made these two witnesses into wicked people. Then comes the next pasuk, V'hayim bin hakos harasha. You're going to take the wicked people, i.e. these witnesses that you can't deliver the regular scheming punishment because they're not eligible, that punishment wouldn't be eligible for them, and you're going to give them lashes. Okay, so now that's what that part of the pasuk is used for. Hence, we have no need to use that part of the pasuk to tell us the number of judges, and ushvatum is the only part of the pasuk that tells us about the number of judges for lashes. It's 3 judges. Now, that's great, but v'tepuk le milo ta'aneh. We have a general principle. The principle says that we have a general rule that says that you're not supposed to, in the Aseres Dibros, you're not supposed to give false testimony. And that's what we call a los, that's a regular los aseh, a regular negative commandment in the Torah. Whenever you have a regular negative commandment in the Torah doesn't specify what the penalty is, we assume it to be malchus. We assume it to be lashes. So therefore, if the pasuk tells me, don't bear false witness, don't tell a false testimony, so then they should get lashes because of that. Why do you need a special pasuk to tell me about these Edoms, that these witnesses that were scheming, that they get lashes? Of course they get lashes. Every lying witness should get lashes, right? No, not so, because we have a rule, we have such a concept of a negative act which has no action. That means that there are some times that I can violate something the Torah tells me not to do without doing anything. And any negative commandment which you don't get lashes for that there's no action, you don't get lashes for. That's a general rule. Now, what's an example?
Right.
The Torah says, right, when you're eating a sacrifice, don't leave the meat over till the morning.
Right.
Now, the meat is there in the morning. Did you do something? No, I didn't eat it. By not eating it, I left it over till the morning. That I cannot get lashes for. Why? Because there's no action of not eating. Right? Similar. He says I'm not allowed to leave it over. Right. But nevertheless, that's a non-action.
And non-action love.
And non-actions, I can't get lashes for. Then, right, we apply it to this case also. Speaking, the Gemara in Maseches Makos tells us, is not considered an action. Speaking is not an action. Therefore, when all the witnesses are speaking and they are giving false testimony, that's not considered to be an action. And therefore, they wouldn't get lashes for it. Therefore, I need a special pasuk by Edom Zomimim to tell me that they do get lashes, despite the fact that it's not an action. They are going to get lashes because in general, we wouldn't give somebody who gives a false testimony lashes. Okay.
What about Motzi Shem? Okay, that's not allowed. Never mind. That's not allowed.
Now, Mishum Rabbi Yishmael Amru Be'Esther V'Shlosha. Rabbi Yishmael says, you know how many judges we need for lashes? We need 23 judges. My time at Rabbi Yishmael, why does Rabbi Yishmael hold this 23 judges? Amar Abaye says, Asya Rasha Michayve Misos. There is what we call a Gzera Shava. Gzera Shava is a concept that I've got the same word written in 2 different locations, and it's almost like a portal between the 2 sections of the Torah, and I learned the rules from one over to the other. I cannot just simply invent these. These have to be part of tradition. There was a tradition that there was a portal between the 2 sections of the Torah, one relating to lashes and one relating to the death sentence. Okay, and we already knew that the death sentence requires 23 judges. That we already learned several pages ago. It says here in our parsha, and when you give lashes to the wicked person, that he's a wicked person, he's going to die. Just like when you're going to have somebody put to death, you need 23 judges. So too, when it comes to Malchus, you're going to need 23 judges. Rava says, I don't need that pasuk. Malchus b'makom midsa omedes. We already had a principle where we discussed before that somebody might be able to, that lashes essentially is a light death sentence. Right? By concept, it's a light death sentence. Because it's a physical punishment. It's not like penalties or paying for fines or anything. It's a physical punishment, and as such, if somebody is liable to a death sentence, as we had learned before, if somebody is liable to a death sentence, and they got warned for lashes, they can get lashes and not get the death sentence, and that will absolve them from their crime.
It's not like death sentence. Doesn't mean it's like it's still painful. Death is quick and not so painful.
Which, the Malchus?
No, the light pain.
Well, it's not going to be death at all, right?
I think it is Hasra if the Hasra was wrong.
Yes.
If the Hasra was wrong, if I said he'd have to pay, whatever, he'd have to pay Karen. I thought because of that was my testimony. Therefore, that would be the.
Well, the thing is that it only works
right?
if the punishment
is.
is
It only works with mouth.
Right. It only works with Malchus. I can't say, oh, I'm warning you. The base is going to give you $1,000 fine. Now they'll give you $1,000 fine. And you don't get a death sentence. It doesn't work. Malchus works. Why? Because Malchus is almost like a light death sentence. Amar Rav Acha Brei de Rava. Rav Acha, the son of Rava, said, the Ravash says to Ravashi, if that's true, if really Malchus is a light death sentence, umdana lamali. So what's the whole reason why we have a process where we're going to learn about that when it comes to lashes, you have to do a medical evaluation of the person who is getting lashed. You cannot kill him. Because he's not supposed to get a death sentence. He's supposed to live. So therefore, you do an evaluation. If this guy can only take, 15 lashes, then he gets 15 lashes. That's it. He doesn't get the full 39. 39 is the maximum, but if he's less healthy, he's going to get less. So the answer is, we're trying to keep him alive. So is lema. So who cares? If it's a light death sentence, let him die. What difference does it make? So the answer is Amar Lei, Amar Kroi. He says no, because the pasuk specifically tells us that he's not supposed to die. V'nikla achicha leinecha. You're supposed to give lashes to your brother in front of you. So now he has to be your brother, meaning the lashes have to be given to a living person. Just like your brother's alive, so too the person who's getting Malchus has to be alive. Otherwise, the Malchus don't count. There's no point to Malchus if the guy's dead. Now, ki machis agabe dechaye machis. When you're going to give the lashes have to hit a guy who's alive. Now, Ella Hadetanya. But now 1 second. Okay, we got that part. But let's take a look at the following brisa. The brisa says, Amdu likabel esrim. Let's say they did a medical evaluation and they determine that this fellow can handle 20 lashes. That's the number. So now, ein makanoso ela makos haruuyos lishtalish. The rule that we're going to learn about is that lashes have to come in groups of 3. Because the way that they're given is one side of the back, other side of the back, and then one that goes around the front. That's they're given in groups of 3. Okay? So now.
Does it mean like a break or a space in between?
Yeah, so it's going to go from back, and then it goes like a wrap around to the front or from the side, right? So therefore, that's how the lashes are going to be. They're in groups of 3, right? So it's not hitting the person in the same spot over and over and over again, right? So, but it has to be in groups of 3. So now, this guy got evaluated for 20. So what are you going to give him?
Less than 20.
18, right? Because you can't give him 21 because he can't last for 21. So therefore, you got to stop at 18, and that's where it's going to be.
And if it's 2?
Then he's
to 0 or does it go
Doesn't matter, it's up to 20.
right? No, you're right. If he's evaluated at 2, maybe he doesn't get any, right? Yes, the Gemara's going to ask. Yes.
Are they allowed to continue if it's a death sentence?
Sorry?
Are they allowed to continue to give lashes?
So now they can't. Here's our question. Now, v'kamahain, how much is the evaluation? Is Timnei Srei, you're going to wind up with 18. Turning the page, Yud Amud Beis. So then fine. So limichye esrim v'chada. So v'chimayis ba'chada lemos. So I don't understand. The guy can take 20 lashes, right? So give him 20 lashes. At the end of the 20th lash, he'll be alive, right? The 21st, he's going to die. But who cares? Because when you hit him, he was alive. Right?
Right.
So therefore, give him the 21st lash and let him die. Right? In other words, the whole reason why you couldn't have him dead is because you needed to give lashes to a live person. But so he dies. We said it's light misa, so okay. So he dies. So as long as we gave the lash, the 21st lash was on a live person, it's a valid lash. So okay, so that's fine. So,
But normally he has to get the 40.
Well, unless he can't medically take it. If he can't, right.
But it doesn't matter if medically.
It does matter, right? Because he can't.
21.
Because he can't. Because we cannot give lashes to a dead person. Right? That is that we said, right? The pasuk says he has to be achicha, he has to be your brother, which means he has to be alive. If he's going to be dead after the 20th lash, I can give the 21st one, right? Because he's still alive after 20, but I can't give a 22nd one. He's already dead.
Is the chashash that he's going to die?
Oh,
that he's not going to because
right?
What's the big
the
deal?
way we've said, right?
19 more times. Like,
so the way we said it was the problem is hitting somebody who is dead,
right?
Not if he dies, right? So the answer seems to be, right? So therefore, agava dechaya kamachis. So he says, because you're hitting somebody who's still alive. So amar lei. So he says, no, amar kro. That you have to read the pasuk right. V'nikla achicha le'necha, meaning that you have to give lashes to your brother in front of you. Means achar shalaka achecha be'ina veleka. Meaning once he's done with all of his lashes, he has to still be alive.
He's barely alive after the 20.
That's fine.
How do they even
Barely.
determine it?
It's a great question.
Like an expert, like this are pronounced.
No, but how do they determine it?
professional.
It's a great question.
That's a practice.
Yes, they must have had to be good at it or something. How a guy knows how many lashes this guy's going to be able to take.
What if they miscalculated? Like, I thought he was going to make it after 15.
Coming up, yes.
And the judges
Coming up.
The judges were Medi this time.
Yeah.
No, they had a
Lash guy?
they had a
So
guy.
so maybe
Yes.
the Lash guy knows already, and
They probably had a doctor. We'll see. We'll see. All the details are upcoming, right? This is our introduction, but the details are upcoming, right? Okay, so now we get into Ibur HaChodesh, calculating the extra month. So now I'm going to just go through. There are about 12 introductory points that are on the bottom here of the Masifta that are just worthwhile mentioning through very, very quickly. So first of all, we have a calculated year, right? Our years are Rosh Chodesh is all calculated. Back in the times of the basic. Rosh Chodesh is tonight, right? So okay, perfect. So now, the Rosh Chodesh was during the times of the Beis Hamikdash was established by Re'iyah, by being able to see the moon. The moon, the moon travels around the earth, right? And because the earth is in between. Because of the earth casts a shadow onto the moon, so therefore you wind up being able to see partial sliver of the moon, right, at different parts of the month. From the time the moon goes into a waxing phase and a waning phase. Waxing means it's getting bigger, waning means it's getting smaller, okay? And it goes and waxes and wanes and goes through a full cycle until it turns into a sliver and disappears. The moment that it disappears, that's called the molad. When it reappears as a sliver, that's called the molad. That's the time of the rebirth of the moon. When we announce at Rosh Chodesh, the molad will be, and then a time is given, that's the time at which the new moon appears over Yerushalayim, and that's officially the time when Rosh Chodesh is going to be. Now, Rosh Chodesh doesn't start at the molad, it starts at the night of the next day following the molad. So if the molad is Tuesday afternoon, so then Wednesday night is going to be Rosh Chodesh. Okay? So that's how that goes. Now, the time between one molad to the next is 29 days and 793 chalakim. Right? 29 days, 12 hours and 793 chalakim.
What's
okay? What is a chilek? A chilek is a portion of an hour. The hour is divided into 1,080 parts by halacha, and which means that each chilek, if you do the math, is about 3 1/3 seconds. Why do they divide it into 1,080 sections? It seems like a fairly random number, but it isn't. And this I just recently learned. It actually isn't. You have to remember that in the times of the Gemara and before, they didn't do math with decimals. Almost entirely now, we do math with decimals. They did math with fractions. Whenever you're going to read Rashi or read a Tosfos or anything else, all of their mathematical calculations seem to be very complicated because they turn everything into fractions. Okay, so now, when you're going to do math with fractions, having a number that's easily divisible by many numbers is great. 1,080 is a number which is equally divisible by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, and 10. Not 7, but 8, 9, and 10. It is equally divisible by all of those numbers, making it really simple to divide. Okay? It also happens to be, it's not the lowest common denominator between all those numbers. The lowest common denominator between all those numbers is 360. But since the amount of chalakim it happens to be between one moon cycle and the next is 793, which is a number that you cannot reduce 793 over 1,080. So we're going to use 1,080, which is a great number, which is, like I said, is divisible by all these numbers minus 7. If you threw 7 into it, it would wind up being 2,520. And so that winds up being a much higher number, but we're going to keep it simple at 1,080. So we get all the numbers in except for the number 7. Makes it easy to divide. It's really nice if you're working with fractions to use the number 1,080. So, in terms of taking chalakim for the 3 1/3 seconds, it comes out to 29 days, 12 hours, 44 minutes, and 3 1/3 seconds. That's the amount of time between one new moon and the next. 29 and a half days is, you can't have Rosh Chodesh as a half day. So that means that the way to split it up is have Rosh Chodesh, sometimes a month is 29 days, the next month is 30 days, right? 29, 30, 29, 30, 29, 30. But since there's going to be 44 minutes and 3 1/3 seconds extra, so every so often, we're going to need to throw in an extra day into months. Generally speaking, the Jewish year is divided up into 6 months that are 29 days, 6 months that are 30 days. Every once in a while, we are going to add an extra day to Kislev or to Cheshvan in order to be able to make the years extra long. Now, when we add extra days, there's some other things that we have to worry about when we start adding extra days. We're going to see this when we get to the Gemara. We're going to want to very much avoid having Rosh Hashanah fall out on Sunday, Wednesday, or Friday. We call this the rule of Lo Adu Rosh, that Rosh Hashanah cannot fall out on Sunday, Wednesday, Friday. What's the reason? The reason is because if Rosh Hashanah falls out on a Wednesday or a Friday, then that means that Yom Kippur will either fall out on a Friday or a Sunday. We don't want Yom Kippur on a Friday or a Sunday because that means that it will be Yom Kippur and Shabbos right next to each other. The only 2 days in the year that you can't cook.
Why are we allowing Yom Kippur on Shabbos though, not Friday?
Sorry?
Why do we allow Yom Kippur to be on Shabbos and on Friday?
If it's on Shabbos, then we only have 1 day that you can't cook. We don't want 2 days in a row that you can't cook. Remember, they didn't have refrigerators, and there's no way for them to be able to make any food. So therefore, if it's Yom Tov, that's not a problem. You can cook food, you can slaughter an animal, you can make food on Yom Tov. But if you have 2 days in a row where you can't make or prepare anything, that means you'd have to prepare food the day before. If you made food from Thursday, by the time you get to Motzei Yom Kippur, you might not have anything left to eat that's not spoiled. So therefore, they wanted to avoid Yom Kippur coming out on a Friday or on a Sunday. The other thing that they wanted to avoid was they wanted to avoid Hoshana Rabbah falling out on Shabbos. These minhagim of Hoshana Rabbah and the Hoshanas or Muktzah, we don't want that to fall out on Shabbos. So therefore, Rosh Hashanah can't fall out on a Sunday, because if it falls out on a Sunday, then Hoshana Rabbah will come out on Shabbos. So therefore, it is possible that we will have a year where we're going to add an extra day in order to be able to make up this extra 44 minutes, 3 1/3 seconds that have been adding up over 32 months or so. And now we're going to want to add them together and build an extra day in. And if we do that, then we're going to wind up pushing Rosh Hashanah into the wrong day. And we're going to then have to push Rosh Hashanah another day and have another work. So we're going to add. We call a Shana Shlema, where we're going to add 2 months that are going to have 30 days rather than 29. Happens to be, why did I mention all that? Because it happens to be that this year is such a year that is the rarest, apparently, of all types of years, where you have both Kislev and Cheshvan of 30 days, and it doesn't come out all that often. And this is one of those rarities that we have it. And I guess it apparently occurs once every, I don't want to say, no, I think it was like every, this might have been every 20-something years. I'll have to take a look at what it was. Wow. It's very, very rare. But okay, in any event, that's our...
How does that work? So now you have an extra day. So do you have to, does that mean...
But remember, you're not having an extra day because you had to add that day in order to make up for all the extra 44 minutes.
You add one extra day, but then you add an extra day on top of that.
Yes, so now that means that you're going to have to balance the next year, have 29s.
Right, so you pull off a day.
That is correct.
And that
now,
never...
Here's a very important thing. Now, the Chachamim had this ability to add an extra day here, an extra day there. But you never want to have more than 8 months that are mole, more than we call them mole or full months, when they're 30 days. Chaser, meaning they're empty months, if they only have 29. You never want to have more than 8 of one type. You don't want to have more than an 8 and 4 year. Why? Because then you'll look up at the sky and you'll see the new moon and it'll be 2 days off. Right? You're going to start taking a look up at the sky and realizing, oh, it's the new moon, and Rosh Chodesh is not going to be for another 2 days. So therefore, 1 day, 2 days, people will go with. After you get to like 3 days already, then people start questioning what in the world is the Beis Din doing. So therefore, Beis Din was limited and would try to not have any years that had all that many extra days. Okay, so that was the tools in their toolbox. Also, we're going to see as we're going to get through this Gemara that they had other calculations that they need to worry about. They had to also worry about the fact that on average there's 11 days less in the lunar calendar than there is in the solar calendar, and so the seasons are changing. Right? Those are the times they are changing. 91 and a half days, 91 and a quarter days. Each season has 4 seasons. Each one of them is 91 and a quarter days. Okay, so the seasons changes: winter, spring, summer, and fall. Right, and so you have each of these seasons get 91 and a quarter days. There's an equinox. Right, the equinox is when the Earth's equator, right, when the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere are both the same distance from the sun. Right, because you remember that the Earth rotates on an axis of 22 degrees. So when it's let's say I'm the sun. So when it's floating around this way and tilted, the northern hemisphere is tilted towards me, that's summer. It goes to the side of me, then they're even. Then when it's behind me, this northern hemisphere is tilted away. That's the winter time, and it goes around again. It's 91 and a quarter days, approximately, to go around. Now, that's not entirely correct, but that is the Julian calendar, which was I guess from Julius Caesar when they invented it, and it's fairly accurate, except that it's not entirely accurate, and they invented the Gregorian calendar in about 1582, the Christians did, in order to be able to line up better with the seasons, because they realized that you lose a day every 4 years, and so therefore you had to add a leap year every 4th year, except on the even 0 year. That year, even though it's divisible by 4, is not a leap year. But by adding in those extra days, they stayed on track with the seasons, because it's a little bit off. The Jewish calendar never adjusted to the Gregorian calendar. That's why every 100 years or so, we start to say V'sein Talamater Livracha a day later. You start to see in the old siddurs that you look back, it says that we started to say V'sein Talamater on December 3rd or December 4th. Now it's December 4th, December 5th, and now in the new Siddurim you have December 5th, December 6th, right? It's moving, and the reason why it's moving is because every 100 years, the Jewish calendar never took into consideration, is still working with the Julian calendar, not the Gregorian calendar, a whole nother shiur that I'll give another time on V'sein Talamater Livracha. But in any event, just to be aware of all of these calendars and everything that's floating around, the Chachamim were worrying, and we talk about making a calculation. There's a lot to calculate here, right? There was a lot to worry about.
In ancient times with the Chagim and the calculations, and the people would look at the moon and declare Rosh Chodesh or not. Did they have to keep these in mind and not have Yom Kippur?
That's exactly what we're saying.
I don't fully understand the mathematics of it, but I guess it all works out. Right?
Well, now we're going to... That's my overview. That's my overview. Now we're going to go inside and we'll say, oh, okay, now we will relate. We're going to need my board to find where my board went for tomorrow. Otherwise I'll print out some sheets to hold up, because we'll find it tomorrow. We'll find it for tomorrow. But in any event... Right?
Muslims don't have the Muslims. They don't have.
They don't. Right? Muslims, their calendar follow the lunar, and their Ramadan can adjust by this. Goes all through all the different seasons.
Yep.
That's right. So that's where they're different. Okay. Shaninu b'Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Ibur hachodesh b'shlosha. When they're going to be making a extra chodesh, we need 3. So now. Oh, beautiful. Okay, good. I'm going to take this home and start drawing on it, because I got calendars to write for tomorrow. Okay. Chishuv loktani. Now, the calculation, that's not what's written in the Mishnah. Kiddush lokitani. Calculation would be the rabbis getting together and having this conversation about all of these factors. Kiddush would mean the rabbis getting together and making the pronouncement that this is the new month. Ella ibur. What does the Mishnah say? It says, making it an extra day. Ibur means pregnant, literally, right? Adding an extra something to it. So, what's going on here? Like, what is that? What's the purpose of that? Lo likdisha umimela le'aber. I don't understand. What do you need the judges for at all? If the judges don't get together, they don't say anything, right? You get to the 30th day of the month, it's not possible. One thing we said that is not possible is you can never have a 31-day month. They're either 29 days or 30 days. Now, you could make a month that was supposed to be 29 into a 30, but you can never make a month that's 31, which means that if the court never met, never did anything, then the month would be 30 days. And the next day would be Rosh Chodesh, without any action of Beis Din. So what does the Beis Din have to do in order to make an extra a month of 30 days? Beis Din has nothing to do. So what do we need 3 judges for? So Rabbi says Tani Kiddush HaChodesh. He says it's supposed to be Kiddush HaChodesh, which means it's the establishment of the new month when it's only 29 days. They would say Mekudash, Mekudash, Mekudash. The Beis Din would get together and establish that today being the 30th day of the month is now the first day of the following month. So last month only had 29 days. By making that declaration needed 3 judges. Tanya Nami Hachiv, a Bryce that supports that also as well. Kiddush HaChodesh, the establishing the new month, the Ibur Hashana, and also making an extra month in the year. Bishlosha needs 3 judges. Different Ramir says. Amar Rava says, V'ha Ibur Katani, but it doesn't say in the Mishnah Kiddush HaChodesh. It says Ibur HaChodesh, which means that you're making the month into 30 days. El Amar Rava, so Rava says, no, what's going on here is like this. Kiddush B'yom Ibur Bishlosha. Establishing, it means that establishing on the day that would be the 30th day needs 3 judges. Achar Ibur Leka Kiddush. But the 31st day, where there would be no need, there's no need to have anything, and there's no declaration that needs to be made. Umani, whose opinion is that? Rabbi Elazar. We changed the girsa to Rabbi Tzadok. It's Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Tzadok says, "Ditzanan is the Mishnah." Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Tzadok Omer, Im lo nira bismano. Let's say the moon was not seen in its time, meaning on the 29th day. Ein mekad shenoso. Then we don't have a Beis Din make any declaration at all. Shekvar kitshu b'shemayim, because once it got to the 30th day, it already got declared that way by heaven. Hashem already declared this is a 30-day month. Rav Nachman interprets the Mishnah like this. Amar Kiddush achar ibor bishlosha. He says that this is establishing on the 31st day. Beis Din had to rule and establish that this was the first day of the following month, despite the fact that the previous month had 30 days. Right? On Bayom Ibur, Leka Kiddush, but if it was on the 30th day, there would be no need to make a Beis Din declaration. Because why? Money? Whose opinion is this? This is Plimo. This is Plimo's opinion. Plimo had the opinion that Beis Din didn't establish the new month when there was a 29-day month. It was only if there was a 30-day month, right. Then they came along and said, oh, today's the 31st, which is not the 31st, it's the first day of the new month. The Tanya is going to Brisa. Plimo says, Bismano, if the new moon is seen in its time on the 29th day, Ein Mekadshino, so then Beis Din makes no declarations. Shalo Bismano, but if it's seen not in the right time, meaning on the 30th day, then Mekadshino, so then Beis Din has to declare the following day to be Rosh Chodesh.
So 29-day month, we don't need a Beis Din to declare.
Correct.
Is that how we paskin?
No, that's how Plimo says, right? I think we hold the other. We hold the other way.
That
right?
you need it for both.
No, he says if it's near Bismano, then.
You need the 29.
Right, we hold like Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Tzadok, right? That we're going to declare it on the 30th day.
Do you ever hold anything that Rabbi Pliny says?
I don't know that we have any. I'd have to look up and see if we ever hold a halach like Plimo. I don't know. He's a uncommon sage. Ravashi says, no. Okay, now in all of these, we're trying to figure out how the word ibur really means kiddush. Right? Because the Beis Din is establishing. That's how we tried to solve this problem. So Ravashi says, no, liolam chishuv ktani. Really, the Mishnah is talking about the calculation. Really, the Mishnah is talking about the calculation. Umay ibor chishuv de ibor. What does it mean about the extra day? That the word ibor, it means we were calculating whether there was need for the extra day. Why? Because we're going to, in a moment, be talking about the need to calculate an extra month in the year. So Tananami Ibor Chodesh, therefore, we are also talking about adding an extra day, the calculation that needs to take place for an extra day in the month. So Chishuv Chodesh in, Kiddush Chodesh lo. So this means that we need to have 3 for the calculation of the month, not for the declaration of the month. So money, who's this opinion? Rabbi Eliezer, it's Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. Detanya, as we learned in our Bryce, Rabbi Eliezer says, Bein bismano, bein shelo bismano, ein mekadshino. So it does not matter whether when the moon was seen. We do not need a beis din to establish it, to say it. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, v'kidash v'shnas hachamishim shana. So he says that you should establish and declare holy the 50th year. Beis din has to get together on the Yovel year and say, today, this is the Yovel year. Shanim atam mekadesh. Beis din only has to declare a Yovel year. Via atam mekadesh chadashim. Beis din does not make a declaration when it comes to Rosh Chodesh. They just publicize it. They don't need to make a statement. Right? They would just put up posters and send people out. Right? But they didn't have to have official Beis din proclamation. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer Bishlosha. So Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, no, you need 3 to get started, then 5, then 7. So Tanya. So we learned in a Bryce to explain Rabbi Shimon Gamliel's opinion. Keitzad Amar Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. How did Rabbi Shimon Gamliel describe this process? Bishlosha matchilin. They would start the process of having a discussion of adding an extra month with 3. Ubechamisha nosnin. Then they would have a 5-panel judge continue with the discussion. The Gomer, and then they would vote b'shiva with 7. Echad Omer. So, batal. Let's say there was a vote, and the vote was 2-1 against. Then that was the end of the conversation. Yachid b'mioto shnai. Because why? Because the one person is in the minority, and so that would he'd be outvoted. Shnai omer leishev, echad omer shelo leishev. However, if it was the other way, two said that they should have an extra month, and one said no. So then. Or really, they were deciding whether to add more and continue the conversation. So then Mosif and Aleim Od Shnayim. At that point, they'd add another 2 judges onto the panel. Venosin, and then they would have further conversation. Bedavar in the topic. Shnayim Omrim Tzricha Shosh Omrim Mein Tzricha. Then, if 2 of them would vote and say we need it, and 3 would say we don't, bitlu, then that was the end of the conversation. Shnayim b'miuton, right? So meaning if the 2 new judges came on and they said no. Right, and they would join the one judge who said no. Then you have 3-2, right? Shnayim b'miuton shlosh. So, but shnayim b'miuton, the 2 are nullified in the minority. Shlosh omrim tzricha. If 3 of them say that you need it, ushnayim omrim eina tzricha, and 2 say that you do not. So then mosif and leiba od shnayim. Then we're going to add 2 more judges. Shein haminyan pachos mishiva, because then the number is not going to be less than 7. So now the question is, hani shlosh chamisha v'shiva keneged mi. Where did they get this number? This idea of 3, 5, and 7, right? We always are asking what's the source for these rules. Where's the 3, 5, 7? So. Mipligi ba Rabbi Yitzchak bar Nachmani v'chad di'imei. Right, so it was an argument between Yitzchak bar Nachmani and somebody who was with him. Umanu, who was that person? Reb Shimon ben Pazi was Reb Shimon ben Pazi. Someone said it was the reverse. Reb Shimon ben Pazi v'chad di'imei was Reb Shimon ben Pazi, one who was with him. Umanu Rabbi Yitzchak bar Nachmani was Rabbi Yitzchak. The same rabbis, but the disagreement is who was the main, who was the bigger scholar of the 2. Chad Amar keneged Birkas Kohanim. One said it relates to the words in Birkas Kohanim. Because the words in Birkos Kohanim, 3 words in the first bracha, 5 in the 7. Yes, that's 3 in the first blessing, 5 in the second blessing, 7 in the third. So that's the way that Hashem blesses the Jewish people. So that's the way when the Jewish people are calculating for the year, they also need to go 3, 5, 7. Okay, that's where he says. One says, Shlosha keneged shomrei asaf, chamisha me'roei pnei melech, shiva roei pnei hamelech. We learn in Malachim that there were 3 people who were the shomrei asaf, the closest advisors. Then there were 5 people who were constantly in the king's court, and then in the Megillah. We learn by Achashverosh, there are 7 people that are surrounding the king as advisors. So his closest group has his close advisors, like the executive group, those are 3. And then he's got a committee of 5, he's got a committee of 7. So too, that's what this is like as well. Since we're also holding Hashem's court, so also 3, 5, and 7. Tani, Rav Yosef, Hani Shlosh v'chamisha v'shiva. So we learned, Rabbi Yosef says, just like what we learned, Shlosha Keneged Shomri Asaf, Chamisha Meiroi Pnei HaMelech, the 3 are because of the close circle of the king, 5 are the ones who see the king, and Shiva Roi Pnei HaMelech, and 7 are the ones that see the face of the king who give advice. Amar le Abaye Rav Yosef, Abaye says to Rav Yosef, Ada Idna, my time lo pirish lon marhachi. He says, Abaye said to Rav Yosef was his Rebbe, and he said to Rav Yosef, why didn't you, we were trying to look all over the place for the answer to this question, why didn't you tell us that this was the answer? Amar lahu. Rav Yosef says back to them, Lo havi yadana ditzrich. I didn't know you needed to know the answer. You never, mi ba'isu minai milsa v'lamrichu. You never asked me. If you asked me, have you ever asked me something I didn't answer you? It's a very interesting little last section of the Gemara. I'm not quite sure, right? But this is the point, I guess, that a student has got to ask his Rebbe questions. Okay? Now, Zman nasi tzarech gedisiman. Tana Rabbanan. Ein ma'aver nis hashana ella bi'mizumanin. When you go to add extra time in the year, you need these 7 judges. They have to be invited. Okay? They have to be invited judges. They get told the day before, and therefore the judges can sit by themselves and start doing all the calculations and investigations and everything that they need to do, so that when they come to the court the next day, they're prepared, right? They've got a lot of stuff they've got to prepare in advance.
So wait, the first 3 base it on visibility, and then the rest are cheshbonis?
No, nothing's about visibility. This is all about adding extra months. There's no visibility in adding extra months. This is we're going to see what's going to lead us to add extra months. We're going to see in a moment. Ma'isa b'Rabban Gamliel. There was a story with Rabban Gamliel. She'amar. He said hishkimali shiva la'aliyah. He told his advisor, invite 7 people up to the upper chamber. We're going to have a conversation about adding an extra month. Right? Hishkim. So he went up there the next day. Umatza shmona, and there were 8 people there. So, Amar, he said, Mihu sha'ala shelo bershus. Who's here without permission? So, Yered, he's got to come down. Amad Shmuel HaKatan. Shmuel the small. Why is he called Shmuel HaKatan? Either because he was a very humble individual, as we're going to see from the story, or because he was relative to Shmuel HaRamasi, who is Shmuel the Navi. Right, he was called Haramasi with a great, but also Ramah because he was from a city called Ramah. So he's called Shmuel HaKatan because relative to him. Now he gets up, V'amar Ani hu sha'alisi shelo b'rshus. I came up without permission, v'lo la'avar shana alisi, but I didn't intend to get involved in voting. Right? Don't miss. El lilmod halacha l'maisa hitzra. I just wanted to learn halacha. I wanted to see how it's done. That's all. Amar lo, so he said to him, shave b'ni shave, sit. Ru'uyos kol shanim kulan lis abara yadech. All the years can be calculated by you. El amru chachamim, ein ma'aver nis hashana el b'mizonim law. Just the only thing is that the rule is that you had to be invited. Okay? V'lo Shmuel HaKatan hava, but it wasn't Shmuel HaKatan who was there without permission. Just so that you should know. He was not, he got up and said it was me, but it was not him. Ela inish achrina. It was a different guy. Umachmas kisufahu da'avid. The only thing is, he didn't want to embarrass any other guys. Ki had Yosef Rebbe v'kedorish. I'm sorry. He didn't want to embarrass anybody. Now, he was, what happened? So Mefarshim give different explanations. Obviously, somebody was up there who didn't get invited. So it's possible that nobody didn't get invited. He told his advisor, go get 7 guys. He invited 7 guys. He didn't realize he was counting Rav Shimon Gamliel. He's the 8th guy. But what's the Gemara telling us? Shimon Shmuel HaKatan was not the least guy. He wouldn't have been the guy who left. So therefore, the fact that he raised his hand and got up is because of his humility. Ki had Yosef Rebbe. This is just like the story of Rebbe, that he was sitting v'kadorish v'heirech reich shum, and he got this awful smell of garlic coming from the students. Amar misha achol shum yetzis. Whoever ate the garlic, get out of here. Okay. Amar Rabbi Chia v'yotze. Rabbi Chia got up and he left. Amdu kulan v'yatzu. Everybody got up and left, right? So b'shachar in the morning, Matzu Rabbi Shimon b'Rebbe l'Rebbi Chia. So Rabbi Shimon b'Rebbe found Rabbi Chia. Amar, he said to him, Atahu shitziartu la'aba. Are you the one who was eating the garlic? So Amar lo, he says, Lo tehi kazos b'Yisrael chas v'shalom. I never did. Right? He didn't eat the garlic, but he got up anyway because he didn't want to embarrass. Once he got up, everybody got up and walked out so that nobody would know it was the guy who ate the garlic. For Rabbi Chia, mehecha gomer. Where did Rabbi Chia learn to do that? Mary, learned that from Rabbi Meir. Tanya, we learned in a brisa. There was once a woman who came to the base medrash of Rabbi Meir. Amr lo Rebbe, she said to him, Rebbe, echad mikem katsheni bebia. One of you had relations with me and got married to me. Don't know. Don't want to embarrass the guy who did it. But one of you here is married to me, and I need a get. Right? So Amar Rabbi Meir. So Rabbi Meir got up, a kosav laget, and he wrote her a get. get krisus. V'nosel, and he gave it to her. Amdu kosvu kulam. So once that happened, then all the students all wrote a get, and they all gave it to her. Right? Why? This way nobody would know who was the one, but whoever it was gave a get. Right? That's how they avoided the embarrassment. V'nosnu, when they gave it to her. Where did Rabbi Meir learn that from? Mishmuel HaKatan. He learned it from Shmuel HaKatan. Shmuel HaKatan mehecha gamirla. Where did Shmuel HaKatan learn it from? Mishechanya ben Yechiel. The story of Shechanya ben Yechiel. Dichsiv. Vayan Shechanya ben Yechiel mibnei Elam. Vayomer leEzra. Shechanya ben Yechiel from the children of Elam. He said to Ezra, Anachnu me'aleinu be'Eloheinu v'noshav noshim nachrios. He said to Ezra, we have a problem. A lot of the Jews intermarried. And we have all these Jews that are intermarried here amongst us. The times they were coming back to rebuild the second base of Mikdash, it was a big intermarriage problem. They were in Babylonia for 70 years, and a lot of people were intermarried. He says, what are we going to do? How are we going to purify all the Jewish people? And Ezra had to get up and make an announcement. You got to divorce your wives who are not Jewish. Shechanya ben Yechiel, so Shechanya ben Yechiel, he included himself. He says, there's lots of us that have wives, but he himself wasn't married to somebody who wasn't Jewish. He just included himself in it so he wouldn't embarrass anybody. And that's what they did. Now, Shechanya ben Yechiel mehecha gamar. Where did Shechanya ben Yechiel learn it from? Gamar let me Yoshua. He learned it from Yoshua. Dechsiv, pasuk says, V'yamar Hashem el Yoshua, kum lech lama ata nofel al panecha chata Yisrael. So what happened was that Jewish people were attacking city after city, and they were winning battles after battles. And when they came into Eretz Yisrael, they were in battle after battle, and not a single Jewish person would get hurt. Then they conquered the battle of Ai, and in Ai they were told, don't touch any of the spoils. They used it for idolatry, don't touch it. Then they went to the next battle, and the Jewish people lost. And Yeshua is like, what in the world happened? Right? And they're bowing, they're praying, what did we do wrong? What did we do wrong? And it gets revealed that this guy took the from the spoils. He wasn't supposed to, and the Jewish people got punished for it. But what Hashem is, Yeshua is bowing down to Hashem, and Hashem says, what happens? Yeshua is asking Hashem, who's the one who did the Aveira? Amar li, what do you think? I'm a tattletale? Hashem says to Yeshua, you want me? I'm not a tattletale. I'm not telling you who did it. Hatel goralos. Get lottery, make a lottery, and you'll figure it out. Right? Figure it out on your own.
How is this related to Rosh Chodesh in 3, 5, and 7? Right? Garlic eating and divorcing and.
If you remember everything else, like right? You went. Remember, this is the story about how the 7 judges got invited, right, to be part of the the calculation, and Shmuel HaKatan voluntarily stepped down. The boyisem of Mimosha, and some say it was from Moshe Dichsiv ad Ana Meyantem. When the Jews were in the desert, they were told, don't look for the man on Shabbos. And 2 people, Dasan and Aviram, went looking for the man on Shabbos. And Hashem said, how long is it going to be that the Jewish people don't believe in me? What do you mean the Jewish people? It was 2 guys. And so Hashem doesn't rat anybody out. Hashem wasn't telling Moshe which 2 guys. He just said, the Jewish people, some people here are, and they know who they are. Some Jewish people here didn't do what they were supposed to do.
The embarrassments.
So again, it's the avoid the embarrassments. So that's where we'll stop today.
Wow,
that was amazing.
Beautiful.
That was amazing. I love the tangents that they go on.
Yeah, me too.
With my beautiful.
Wonderful. So great to be back, gentlemen.